4th grade, and welcome to the Kettle Creek Production Studios, right here at Kettle Creek. My name is Roger, and I'm coming to you today to teach you more about wetlands, Pocono Wetlands. And I'd love to be in your classroom right now and teach you this lesson, but since we can't be together, I'm going to teach it to you right now, and hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about what wetlands are when we're all done. Okay, let's start up here. Wetland. What is a wetland? Well, you guys are pretty smart. Let's break it apart. Wet land. So it's a land somewhere that's really, really wet. Pretty simple definition, and one that you can use pretty easily. Scientists tend to call wetlands natural areas where water collects. That means that it's not a bucket, it's not your swimming pool, it's not a garbage can. It's a natural area where water will collect. Where does that water come from? Think about that, guys. Where's the water going to come from? Yeah, that's right. It's precipitation. Rain or snow or sleet falls out of the clouds, lands on the ground, and it collects in these wetland areas. Okay, that's what makes it a wetland. Now, are all wetlands alike? No, they're not. They're all different kinds of wetlands, home to many different plants and animals. So let's talk about the kind of wetlands we have. Some wetlands we call open water. Okay? Ponds, streams, lakes, rivers, they are all open water wetlands. What does that mean? Well, when you walk up to the edge of a pond or a stream or a lake, hey, you're going to see water. There it is. And you're going to see that all year long. It might be frozen in the wintertime into ice, but it's still full of water and it's open. And the plants in those habitats are going to grow on the edges. Okay, they're not going to stick out of the middle of the stream. They're going to be along the edges. Those are open water wetland habitats. The differences are pretty simple. A pond and a lake is going to be calm and the water doesn't flow. But in a stream or a river, the water has a current and it flows. So those are our open water wetland habitats. And they're really cool to look at. You may know one near your house. And if you have the chance, go down, explore along the edges of it. You might even see some stuff swimming in the water. Now, the second kind of wetland habitat we want to deal with are just called basically wetlands themselves. And they're a little different. We're talking swamps, marshes, and bogs. These are considered true wetland habitats. What does that mean? Well, when you walk up to the edge of these guys, sometimes you're going to see water, especially if we had a big rainstorm. But in the middle of the summer, if it's really dry, if you walk up to the edge of these, you may not see any water at all. It might not be visible. But hey, if you step out into these, let me tell you, you're going to get wet and mucky and muddy and maybe sink to your waist in all this swampy, mucky stuff that's in those wetlands. So they're still very wet. You just may not see the water. And the other cool thing about these three, they got plants everywhere. They got trees and grasses and bushes growing right out of the middle of them. And there's some pretty weird plants. They're not all like some of the plants we're used to seeing around our house. So swamps, marshes, and bogs. Now swamps are something you do probably have near your house. They're the most common. And they got a lot of trees and bushes. So a swamp, you walk up to the edge of it, it's going to have all kinds of trees and bushes and blueberry bushes and red maple trees. And it's going to have water and probably frogs and tadpoles. You walk up to the edge of a marsh, though, you're just going to see grass. There's no trees or bushes in a marsh. It's just grass, flat, grassy areas. And there's not a lot of marshes here in the Poconos. There's a couple, but they're not real common. The last wetland habitat is one of the coolest places on earth. I've explored a lot of places as I've gotten older and gone to different nature areas. But let me tell you, a bog is unbelievable and really cool. Why? Well, it's got trees, it's got bushes, it's got grass. But it's like 60 feet deep. But it's not all water. In the middle of the bog, it's 60 feet deep at Tannersville. If you step into it, you're not going to sink, but you're going to get into some mucky stuff called peat moss. That's dead plants. The bogs are full of dead plants. And then on top of that is a green layer of sphagnum moss. And on top of that are all these other plants. Not just trees and grasses and bushes. There's some pretty funky plants in a bog, including some that eat bugs. Pitcher plants and sundews and 300-year-old trees and all kinds of cool stuff. So, hopefully at some point, guys, you're going to get a chance to visit the Tannersville Bog. Maybe on a school trip, but if not, maybe on a video, or you can always come to with your parents, because we do tours at the Tannersville Bog all summer long. It's a really cool spot. So those are the different kind of wetlands we have here in the Poconos. Again, open water, we can see the water all the time. Plants are on the edges. Wetlands, you don't always see the water, but it's always saturated, mucky and wet, and the plants are in the middle. Okay, got it? I think you do. You guys look pretty smart. Okay, now, what I need you to do is we're going to show you why these wetlands are important to you. There's a lot of different creatures and plants and animals that live there, and that's their habitat, so that makes sense that they need those. But we need wetlands too. We're not going to live in them, but we need them. And this next section is going to teach us all about that. So I need to erase my board. What I need you guys to do is get a piece of paper. Doesn't matter, just a nice sized piece of paper. Can have lines on it or it doesn't have to. And get something to draw with. Pencils, crayons, pens, whatever. Because we're going to make a drawing of a wetland. I'm going to do it here on my whiteboard. You guys are going to do it while you're watching on your paper. And hopefully it'll help us understand it a little bit better. So go ahead, get that paper, and I'm going to get ready on the board. Okay guys, everybody ready? Okay, this is pretty simple. I have a real big drawing board here I'm going to use to draw my picture. You're going to do it on your paper. So you need to make sure everything fits. So if I put something in the lower right-hand corner of my paper, which is here, that's where you want to put it on your paper. You want to make sure you have enough room to fit everything on it, because there's a lot of stuff happening around wetlands. Okay, let's get started. We're going to focus on the easiest wetland, or I should say the most common wetland around here. Does anybody know what that is? Swamps, right. And swamps are pretty close to all of our schools. If there's swamps here in the Kettle Creek, there's probably swamps close to your house too that you may not even know about it. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Some swamps are like smaller than your kitchen in your house. Other swamps I've seen are bigger than your school and all the playgrounds and parking lots all around it. So there are a lot of different sizes. And they're not a nice circle in shape. They're pretty much like, well, like a blob. They're shaped, they have fingers, they have bumps on them. So when you draw your swamp, I want you to draw, don't fill up your whole paper. You can see I left a lot of room around it. But make it like a blob or a little bit uneven. And that'll give you an idea. There's our swamp. Okay, you got it? Got the swamp on your paper. Okay, first question, guys. Think about this. We got our swamp. Where does the water come from? What do you think? That's right. It comes from precipitation. It comes from rain. So above the swamp, we're going to draw a cloud. And we're going to have it rain out of the cloud into the pond. Go ahead. Make a cloud. Get some raindrops going down into the pond. So we got a rainstorm out there. The rain is falling down. It lands on the water. And it catches and collects in the swamp. Now we can call it rain, but there's a nice science word that means rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Does anybody know what that is? Right, precipitation. So beside our rainstorm, write the word precipitation. It's raining in our swamp. Okay, the rain stops. Our swamp caught the water. It's holding the water there. The swamp has lots of water in it. Okay, fourth grade, next question. What's one thing that can happen to the water in the swamp? Think about it. Right, evaporation. Sure, it stops raining. The sun comes out. It shines down on the swamp. And the water evaporates. What does it turn into when it evaporates? Can you see it? Right, no you can't. It turns invisible. It turns into water vapor. So to draw it, I'm just going to put some wavy lines up into the air, and I'm going to write the word evaporation over top of those. To let us know that, okay, the sun's shining down, the water turns to vapor, evaporates back up into the sky. Now, once it gets back up into the sky, that water vapor floats around and it combines with dust particles to make another cloud. And that cloud can go across the sky, maybe hundreds of miles, and then it precipitates somewhere else. Does anybody know what that's called when clouds are formed from water vapor? Condensation. Right. Okay. Now, getting back to the swamp, not all the water is going to evaporate out of the swamp. Doesn't work that way. What else might happen to some of the water in the swamp? Right. Plants may suck it up. We said swamps had trees and bushes all around it, so I'm going to draw a nice tree here at the edge of my swamp. Write the word plant up above it so I know it's a plant. And basically, the roots of that plant are sucking some of the water up because the plant needs it to survive. Now, it doesn't drain the swamp, but all those plants around the swamp are definitely getting water out of the swamp. Okay. Anything else happen to it? Right. Not only are there plants, there are animals. Which drink the water out of the swamp. Now, this is a white-tailed deer. I'm sure you could tell by my fantastic artistic ability. You can draw any animal you want around the edge of your swamp with an arrow just to get the idea that, okay, animals are using some of that water. Very important. Okay, now, back to the swamp. We got evaporation. We got plants sucking it up. We got animals drinking it. Anything else happen to the water in the swamp? This is a little tougher. Well, let me draw it out here. Let's say this is the ground, okay? There's the ground. And the swamp sits here on the ground. The water ends up in it, but the swamp leaks. It's not like your swimming pool. At least I don't hope your swimming pool leaks. The swamp leaks. So some of the water leaks out under the ground. Now, it doesn't come out fast. It just comes out in small droplets and drips, and then it moves around under the ground. Now, it's not a big stream or a big river down there. It's more like water droplets sneaking in between the cracks in the rocks and the gravel. And as it's down there under the ground, we call that groundwater. Pretty simple, right? Under the ground, it's called groundwater. So that also happens to some of the water in the swamp. Okay, your picture's probably getting a little busy. We got a swamp, we got sun, clouds, animals, trees, leaking swamps, groundwater underneath the ground. But there's still one more thing we got to add. And hopefully you left a little bit of room over here towards the sun where there's some empty space. And there's somebody else who gets water from the swamp. And they live in a house that looks like that. Recognize it? That's right, 4th grade. It may not look exactly like your house, but does your house have windows, a roof, and a door? Yeah, I think it probably does. So this is our house. This is your house. Now, when your parents built the house, or when the house was built, they didn't build it in the swamp. Because, hey, it would sink, and that wouldn't be a very nice place. They built it over here where the ground was dry. But they also had to have a source of water. Now, do you guys know where most of you get your water? Yeah, right. It comes out of the spigot when you turn it on in the sink. I understand that. But do you think that spigot makes that water? No, it doesn't. All that spigot does is carry it from somewhere. Where does it come from? Well, for most of you, if you live outside of town, out in a more rural area, when they built your house, a big truck came in as part of the process with a drill on the back, and they drilled a hole deep under the ground. Does anybody know what that's called? That's right, it's called a well. And that well has a pump in it and some pipes. And it pumps water up through the pipes. Let me get blue, meaning water, up through the pipe, pumps it up, comes into your house and into all the pipes inside your house. Where does the water in the well come from? 4th grade, look. We go backwards. It comes out of the swamp. It leaks out of the swamp. Now you might say, well, why don't I just stick a pipe in the swamp? Well, hey, time out here. We can't do that because the water in the swamp, we can't drink. When you're out of the swamp, you don't want to drink that water. There's stuff in there living that could make you a little sick. But when the water leaks out under the ground and goes through the ground and the rocks and the gravel, it takes all that dirt out. So by the time it gets to your well, it's clean and we can drink it. So then it gets pumped up in your well, into the water, into your house, to all the sinks and everything else in your house where you need water. Okay. That's how you get water. So tonight, at home, when you're working on your online homework or whatever you're doing, and in your house you get thirsty and you need a drink of water, not bottled water out of the refrigerator, water that you put in a glass, all of you are going to walk down to your sink, turn the spigot on, that clean water will come out, you'll get it in the glass, and you can drink it. It came from the swamp. But it got clean through all the filter, and there's a screen in your well as also, which helps to screen out some of the dirt, so it's nice and clean. So that's how we get our water from a wetland. We don't take it out directly like the plants and animals. We get it indirectly through underground. Everybody understand that? Make sense? Cool. Now, how do you know if you have a well near your house? Well, in your yard, when you have time, go outside, look around. There's probably somewhere near your house a metal pipe sticking out of the ground about a foot. And it's round, about this big around, and it'll have a lid on it, maybe a blue, a silver, or a red lid. And that's the top of your well. That's this part here. The rest of it is deep underground, and the pipes go into your house. They're buried under the ground so you can't see them. Okay, so we started out with our swamp. Lots of things happening, including us getting water out of it. Now let's go back to our houses again. We're not done with us yet. Okay, 4th grade, I want you to think about it. Let's say for dinner tonight you're having spaghetti. Okay, you guys like spaghetti? Yeah, some of you did. It's probably a pretty popular thing. Well, after you eat the spaghetti, you got sauce, you got garlic bread, you got cheese, Parmesan cheese. Your plates are going to be pretty messy. So what do you guys do with those dirty dishes? Well, you wash the dishes. And let's say you don't have a dishwasher, you put them in your sink. And since you guys are all responsible 4th graders, I'm sure you help your parents do the dishes. So you come over here to the sink, you got it full of dirty dishes, you turn on the water comes out, clean water out of the ground, through the pipe, into your sink. You're washing the dishes, scrubbing them off, rinsing them, putting the clean dishes to the side. But when you're done, you have a whole sink full of dirty water. Okay? Spaghetti sauce floating around, maybe a stray noodle, garlic breadcrumbs. So there it is, dirty sink full of water. Okay, 4th grade, what do you do with that? You pull the drain, plug and it goes down the drain. It spins like a tornado. Did you ever see that? That's pretty cool. It goes down the drain. Where does it go? You don't know, right? It just disappears. Well, we need to tell you where it goes. It comes down in a pipe that's going to go under the ground and out in your yard. And somewhere near your house, there's a big cement tank buried. Now, you don't see the tank because it's buried, but you might see a round cement lid about this big, or maybe a square lid. Really heavy lid. That's the top of the tank. When they built your house, they put one of these in the ground. And what happens is, all the dirty water comes out of the sinks and the drains and the toilets and the bathtubs and the washing machines in your house, goes into that tank, and the heavy stuff sinks to the bottom. So the spaghetti sauce, the garlic bread crumbs, the leftover pasta noodles, the dirt you washed off your hands, the stuff you flush down the toilet, all that sinks to the bottom. Okay, and that just gets held there. Does anybody know what you got to do when the tank fills up with all that stuff? Anybody ever see it happen? Yeah, I bet some of you have. A truck comes, you call a guy, and you say, hey, my septic tank's full. Bring the truck. He comes over with a big tank truck and a big hose, and he opens that lid, and don't you open it, because when you open it, it smells like rotten egg, smells really bad. He sticks the tube down in the tank, slurps all that out into the truck, and takes it away. Now, he doesn't take the water away, he's just taking the heavy stuff that sank to the bottom of the tank. Because most of you, in your yard somewhere, think about your yard. Do you have a flat mound area, maybe with some little white pipes, plastic pipes sticking out the top? Yeah? I bet most of you do. And that is called your sand mound. What happens is when they built your house, they put down rocks and gravel and sand there, layered it up, and then they put a pipe from here into here. So the water, which is still dirty, but doesn't have the solid stuff in it anymore, comes out and goes up into this pipe, and then that pipe has a bunch of holes in it. And the water comes out of the holes and leaks through the sand and gravel and gets cleaned out as it goes back underground. Or maybe back into the swamp, evaporates up into the sky, condenses into a cloud, the cloud moves across the sky, and hundreds of miles away, a few days later, somebody gets rained on with your dishwater that you use to wash the spaghetti sauce off your dishes. Pretty crazy, huh? But don't worry, the septic system cleaned all that out, so it's nice clean water again. So that's how a wetland catches the water, provides it to us, and we put it back in the system. Okay, fourth grade, I know you guys are pretty smart. You've studied this already probably. Does anybody know what you'd call this whole system? Your science book might have a picture. It might not look exactly like this, but you're right. It's called the water cycle. So make sure you label your picture that you produced. I'm sure it looks better than mine. And realize that the water cycle is an important thing. Animals, plants, and people are part of that cycle. Okay, I want to do something else with my picture, but I don't want you guys to erase anything. So you guys just put your pencils down and just watch this part of it. Okay, let's go back to this house. Let's say one of you guys, and I don't know, let's say Bobby lives in this house, okay? This is Bobby's house, okay? When everything's back to normal, he goes away to school. But Bobby's been having a hard time sleeping at night because it's springtime. It's this time of year, April. And at night, this swamp is full of spring peepers. Spring peepers are tree frogs about that big as your thumb, and they make a lot of racket on warm nights. Right now, go outside your house tonight and listen. You might hear them peeping. Well, as they peep, they make so much noise Bobby couldn't sleep. Okay? And he's looking real ragged, he's dragging at school and everything else. So, what happens? Well, he goes to school one day, and his parents, who are getting worried about this, say, we got to call a guy out. And we got to get rid of those frogs. And the only way to do that is get rid of the place they like to live. So we're going to take away the swamp. Okay, again, you're not doing this on your picture, but I'm going to do it on mine just to show you. So, that day, when Bobby was at school, they called the guy, and he brought in a big truck, and he filled in the swamp. Filled it in with dirt. Nice and flat. Leveled it out, flattened it down, and Bob's mom and dad looked at it and said, wow, that's cool. I tell you what, Bobby likes basketball. Let's make a basketball court. So they actually paved the hole, and they put up a basketball hoop. So Bobby can practice dribbling and shooting and become the next Steph Curry or Ben Simmons or LeBron James, whoever he thinks he's going to be, on his basketball court. So Bobby comes home from school. Hey, no more frogs. He's sleeping better. He's practicing basketball, practicing hoops. Someday he might be in the NBA. But there's a problem. He's having a lot of fun. About a week later, it rains. Big thunderstorm. You guys have all seen thunderstorms. It rains a lot. Precipitation comes down, boom, it hits his basketball court. Now there's no swamp there anymore, so where does it go? Well, fourth grade, it runs off the basketball court. It doesn't leak under the ground. So now there's not as much groundwater. So Bobby's well grows dry because there's no swamp to catch the water and leak and slowly leak it out. So Bobby now has to buy bottled water because his well doesn't have any. And the plants and animals that lived and got water out of there, they can't survive either. So while Bobby has a really cool basketball court, there's some issues. When it rains a whole lot, the guy that built it was a little smart. He made it so most of the water ran away from Bobby's house, so his basement doesn't fill up with water. It runs over here into the stream, which is on the edge of their property. And all the water runs in the stream. He's like, okay, that's pretty good, right? Runs in the stream. Stream has more water in it. Things will be okay. Well, Bobby's neighbor lives downstream. And his house is pretty close to the creek because he likes that. So now, when it rains, more water runs off into the stream, causes the stream to flood, and it floods Bobby's neighbor's house. Why? Because we got rid of the swamp. We got rid of the big old sponge that's what a swamp is that catches and holds that extra water. That's why wetlands are so important to you and I, fourth graders. One, they provide habitat for plants and animals. And two, they provide us with our drinking water, the water we use every day. They clean the water, and they make the whole system function. If we take away all the wetlands, we lose plant and animal habitat, and we have issues with flooding and polluted water and things like that. So that's a wetland, fourth grade. There's wetlands all around the Poconos where you live. Maybe on your property, maybe at a state park or a park near your house. So if you have a chance to go out and explore along the edge of a wetland, do it, because there's some cool things that live there. And realize that those frogs at night, the spring peepers that you hear, they're going to be in a wetland, laying their eggs. And that wetland may be the same one that's providing you and your parents and your family with the water that comes out of your spigot. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed our Kettle Creek production on Pocono Wetlands. Again, my name's Roger. If you have any questions on wetlands, you can always email us at Kettle Creek or get on our Facebook page and send us a question. I hope to get to see you in school, maybe in the future, and I hope to see you at the bog on an interesting walk. And I'll show you the pitcher plants that live there. So that's all from Kettle Creek Productions. Have a great day, fourth grade.